Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the pros of living in Japan. So I already made a video on the channel if you're interested about the cons of living in Japan, but I just wanted to give a fair representation and talk about the pros of living here. But right before that, I just want to give a quick shout out, a quick thank you to the members of the channel. Thank you very much. And quick disclaimer before I start this video, I just want everyone to understand this is just my personal perspective. It's not necessarily the correct one. It's not necessarily going to be your perspective if you come live here or anything like that. And just for example, let's say you're someone who's from Fargo, North Dakota, and you move to Tokyo. Your experience about moving to Japan, living in Japan, seeing the pros and cons is going to be different than someone who's from New York City, moving to Tokyo, or New York City, moving to Hokkaido. In my case, I'm from a suburb in North America, and I moved to a quote unquote 500,000 person town in Japan. So I don't know, like suburbs, all that, we don't really like. It's hard to say, but it's like a 500,000 population town. It's not huge, it's not small. But these are the pros of living in Japan for me as of now. So number one is the convenience. So supermarkets. Basically, if I want to get an apple, if I want to get a carrot, I just need to drive. Like I have to get in the car. I need to drive back. It's like not a good time. I can't really get food on the way home from work. I used to work night shifts also, so everything was close. So I'd have to like specifically go in the car to buy food. But in Japan, supermarkets are everywhere. They're walkable, so I don't have to get in the car if I want an apple or a carrot. And here in North America, if you start getting into the special Asian items like tonkatsu sauce, or I don't know, like seaweed or mirin or something like that, rice vinegar, I have to drive even further. It's like 40 minutes away from my parents' place, sometimes an hour if you get stuck in traffic. That's gas. Time equals money. Not a good time. But in Japan, at the regular supermarkets, they have all the staples that I'm used to having that I want at an affordable price because, with the importation costs and all that, everything that's Asian, quote unquote, Japanese, quote unquote, costs 3 times more around here. But, anyways, so that's very convenient for me in Japan, the whole food situation. That's including restaurants also. Over here, a lot of restaurants I find are hit or miss, and you have to pay this 15 to 20% tip. And look, I pay. Look, I understand when you go to restaurants, that's what you got to do. But I'm like, man, that's expensive. But you go to Japan, everything comes out fast. It's cheap, and I've never really had a bad meal in Japan. Not gonna lie. And I guess this is just like my palate is more, like matching the Japanese flavors. So you might go to Japan, you might be like, whoa, the food isn't good, the food's overrated. But just my tongue, it's like I just like Japanese food a lot, so it works out well for me. But yeah, that's the convenience situation for me, food, restaurants. Also, how everything's walkable, like I said, I don't have to drive around over. I could either bike or walk, which I love doing because I don't like driving, I have to concentrate on the road. And, this is a story for another day, but I got into an accident once, a collision. So, I'm just like careful on the road, nervous on the road. And also, like, there's so much to do. Again, this is a whole geography thing. Where I'm from in North America, there's not much going on around here. Like, if you hop in your car, there might be a mall. If you hop in the car, if you take the public transport for an hour, you get to a quote unquote major city. But man, in Japan, just like there's so much around. Restaurants, crepe shops, ice cream shops. What else? You hop on the train for like less than 10 minutes and you're in a huge city. The bookstore, I don't know, like it goes on the batting center, there's just stuff, the hardware store, there's like so much to do. And number four for convenience, this is going to sound silly, but tatami mats. So for those who don't know what a tatami mat is, I guess they use some kind of, I'm not too sure what it is. It's bamboo or something. Look, I don't know, but they make the floors out of it, so it's a bit soft. There's still resistance, but it's a bit soft. But that's why you see a lot of people, Japanese people, sleeping on the ground. And me, in North America, I have a futon on a plank of wood on a bunk bed, so it's very firm, it's very hard. And right now I'm just like sleeping on this carpeted floor, so it's very hard also. And for me, like I'm not able to sleep on a soft bed anymore. It's more comfortable, it feels better on my back. So this is why it's like very convenient for me. The food restaurant situation, it's walkable. My bad. And the tatami mats. I felt like I was going to burp there for a sec. Okay, another thing, another pro about living in Japan is cost. If you have a bunch of money and you're coming from like Canada, United States, or these European countries that pay you a lot of money in salary, and you go to Japan, you're going to see everything costs like less. This goes from rent, this goes from transportation. I find, in my case, look, this is case by case where you're from, but like rent, transportation, food, restaurants, no tips. I was looking, cars are cheaper. Also, used cars, used 50cc mopeds or motorcycles, whatever you want to call them. Everything is cheaper if you're into the anime stuff, the video game stuff. A lot of the time, I think it's cheaper also. Like, look, I'm not too sure. I'm not really into that scene, but all I could say is if I buy a bottle of soy sauce in Japan, it's probably 100 yen, 200 yen, but then by the time they import it over here to North America, transportation cost, it ends up costing 3 times as much. So anyways, I just feel like every time I go back, everything's cheaper. I'm just trying to think like what feels more expensive. In my case, maybe the cost of like the water bill, the electricity bill, things like that, but everything else seems to be pretty cheap. Okay, number three, it's easy to find part-time work. Back in the day when I was looking for a part-time job, my first part-time job, I had no connections, nothing. I was biking around, walking around, running around to find a place, applying online during the summer. The summer I was out of high school actually, and I couldn't land anything. Or actually, it was the summer before I ended high school. That was grade 10. I ended in grade 11, but I couldn't find anything, and it was a struggle for me. And I just know, like in Japan, to find a baito, which is like a part-time job, like it's very easy. Like I've never had difficulty finding a part-time job in Japan, but like over here, when I had no experience, it was so tricky. But in Japan, I see where I used to work at these places. It's like they'd hire people for the first job like this, giving these jobs out, giving these baito part-time jobs out like if it was candy. And look, I think it's a good thing because you're giving these people, these kids, valuable experiences that you don't necessarily learn at school. They get to interact with older people, people from different schools, and all that. So yeah, to me, this is like a very pro of Japan kind of thing. It might be just the neighborhood, the city I live in, and just like personal anecdotal experience. Just in North America, it was so hard for me to find a part-time job when I was younger, but in Japan, it was like bam, instant the 2 times I had to look for one. So that was interesting to see. And the last pro about living in Japan is the open green space. So again, this is a case by case thing, but man, like just being able to use, as you saw earlier in the video, on a straight line, no traffic lights, no stop signs, no cars. It's like such a luxury. Here in North America, the potholes, cars, it's just not a good time running outside sometimes, at least again where I live. Anyways, those are my pros of Japan. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, consider checking out the channel and subscribing to it for more content. Have a nice day. See you in the next video. Thank you for the support, folks. See you in the next video, and goodbye.